Oh, what's up, Blackish fam? I hope all is well in your corner of the world. Man, we're going to get into one that I've been really excited about. I know I say that about everyone, but man, you know what? I've been bumping. It's been the first time. I listen to Aesop Rock always the first time for each song for these reactions. I'm relatively new to his work. But I got to say, Jumping Coffins, that's definitely one that I've been bumping on repeat ever since I did the breakdown. I was just chilling yesterday, and I just had man, this has been one that's been on repeat. It's been a while since I've had a song that's hit me like that. There's been a few. I definitely like Dorks as well. But excited to get into this one. Who doesn't like coffee? And in preparation of it, I got my cup of joe for the morning, got my comfy clothes on. Excited to get into this one. This is coffee. Hope it doesn't get taken down. We had some issues with Cycles to Gehenna, where there was the copyright issues with the video. And this one, it's an official video. It looks like it just came out 8 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to try to do the breakdown with the video. If there's any issues uploading it, unfortunately, I'm going to have to splice over it. Maybe I'll try to add something relevant to the breakdown and just come back in and add images or add my own video clip or something so we can save it. But we're going to risk it, and we're going to do, this is Aesop Rock, this is Coffee, this is the official video, and man, really excited to get into this one. Let's check it out. What album is this from? Someone actually gave me a really good idea the other day, and I didn't realize at first that his albums were so different. And instead of jumping around, I'm taking suggestions, and I just jump around based on comments and like, oh, yeah, let's check it out. All right, hey, let's pull it up. But the albums are so different, so it might make sense to do like we did on Garbology and dive into the majority of it at the same time so we can see if there's a common theme or whatnot. But, this is fun as well. We never know what we're going to get, right? Life is like a box of chocolates. Hi, Jenny, right? That's a bad Forrest Gump impression.
At the dawn of the second millennia, it is prophesied that evil will spawn from the clutches of purgatory. Rivers will run red with blood, and the putrefied flesh of the demented will emerge.
Kind of reminds me of, it's funny because somebody just brought this up yesterday on the channel. In a comment, they said, hey, did you check out Clipping Blood of the Fang? Man, that was intense. We did a breakdown right when we started the channel. Insane. If you guys really like dense lyrics as much as I do, it's nothing like Aesop Rock, but it's definitely something different, and it's intelligent as well. Check out Clipping Blood of the Fang. I have in the lyric and breakdown section, just like I have Toby Wigway, Marlon Craft, Sirach, now Atmosphere. We'll eventually have Idea, Slug. There's one there for the clipping. And man, it's intense, and there was a lot of knowledge. I was surprised at how much information they dropped in that. But very similar. It had like there's a vampire theme to that the entire piece of work.
Red with blood, and the putrefied flesh of the demented will emerge from their crypt and bring damnation upon the living.
Now, I don't know what that reference was. It didn't sound like anything that I was familiar with.
We don't need no walkie-talkies, no walkie-talkies. We don't need your coffin went off in the morning coffee now. We don't need no walkie-talkies, no walkie-talkies. We just want our arbitrary to stay.
Wow, so it's definitely zombies. So definitely check out Blood of the Fang by the Clipping. Check out our video for that. But it's really interesting. He's saying we don't need no walkie-talkies, right? He said we don't need your coughing. With the morning, when you're offing the morning coffee, right? Offing, I guess, like zombies. But there's a cough button. It's a button that most people use on radio stations as well. When you need a pause, like temporarily pause so you can cough or sneeze or whatnot. That's a cough button that's on a walkie-talkie.
Don't need no walkie-talkies, no walkie-talkies. We just want our arbitrary to stay in a go.
What did he say? We just want our Hermitry. That's that's simply being left alone, right? So he's saying we don't want our walkie-talkies. We just want our hermitry to stay, and I think he said in our coffee to go. Okay.
Just want our arbitrary to stay in a go. And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat. Facing him up with a moxie melt. And he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. Born a cave with a pass out heat. Facing in a walkie talkies. No walkie talkies. We just want our arbitrary to stay in a go. And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat. Facing him up with a moxie melt. And he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. Born a cave with a torch on the wall. And a window arrangement.
Ooh.
Brand new day. Saw what he saw. Property owners who
So he's saying so much already. It sounds like this is going to be one with a lot of breakdowns. I think he said something about the torch on the wall with the cave. And then he started out with what sounded like a Bible verse, right? He said, the last shall be first to immerse. But I want to hear what he said there. I think he said in the heat. But it definitely sounds like that's a Matthew verse. Okay. So, we think of, right, what did Jesus mean when he said, what first will be the last and the last will be the first is the quote, right? That's basically when Jesus told the disciples that they would be greatly rewarded in heaven for the work that they'd done on earth. And just give me 1 second when I check my notification here. Okay, we're fine. I have kids, so my apologies if something happens. I need to be aware what's going on. But anyway, back to this. What did Jesus mean, right? When he said first will be the last will be the first. And again, he's talking about the rewards in heaven, but it's not based on necessarily what's important to you on earth, right? So you might be rich on earth, but you can't take this to heaven, right? It's more important that you're a better person and you save your riches really for the afterlife. It's kind of funny because I remember breaking something similar to this down on another Aesop rock. There seems to definitely be common themes, all right? We definitely get the isolation, we get the depression, but there's other themes that he lingers to. I would be really interested in taking a step back after we got into so much of this work and finding a common theme between either albums or, but there's definitely references that they're just kind of little ping goes off when, didn't I say this before? So really interesting, but let's let it ride a bit here.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat. Facing him up with a moxie melt. And he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. To immerse in a pass out heat. Facing him up with a moxie melt. And he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. Born in a cave with a torch on the wall. Then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls on a brand new day. Saw what he saw. Property owners who quarreled from the mall. With a bad toupee and a face like you author the law. Face like you're mourning a loss. Right hand on a can of worms. Left full of gold, he will drape a turn. I mean, that's okay. You got to answer to you at the end of the bottle of day. With a model of mercy and might no way.
So, okay, Marianne. So it sounds like he might be talking about he's talking about people being puppets, right? He just brought up a puppet, and he's definitely at this coffee shop. But it seemed like he brought up allegory of the cave, right? Some of Plato's work in the beginning here. It's so funny because I'm not used to his speed here. It would definitely help if we had the lyrics available, but let's let it ride because I want to understand just like I would if I were just buying a CD. I know that's you put the CD in and you just rock with it, right? Let's let it ride from the beginning here.
We don't need no walkie-talkies, no walkie-talkies. We don't need your coffin went off in the morning coffee now. We don't need.
Okay, so we see the walkie-talkies, and I caught a glimpse of what he said right earlier. He's talking about puppets. Walkie-talkie is probably not a literal walkie-talkie, right? Look how he's showing these zombies, right? These zombies are walking, talking. So he's talking about getting coffee. Maybe there's a play on that, right? He wants to. It sounds like he doesn't want to have anything to do with anybody. He wants to just get in and head out, right, back into the heat. So no walkie, no talkie. Could be around the coffee store, right? Either they're all walking around like zombies because they haven't had their morning brew, or it could tie in that we caught. He said something about being puppets, right? So no walkie, no talkie. It sounds like it could be really a metaphor for these for this getting coffee or this coffee shop, right? He doesn't want to be bothered with anything. He just wants to be in and out. No walkie, no talkie, right?
No walkie talkies, we don't need your coffee went off in the morning coffee now. We don't need no walkie talkies, no walkie talkies. We just want our arbitrary to stay in a coffee. Yeah. And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing them up with a moxie melt.
Face in the mud where the moxie melts. Moxie is like your X factor, if you would. It's like your backbone, your spine, your how would you say your like grit, your drive, right? So if you look like if you were to think of the opposite, it would be like a coward, right? Like spineless. So I don't know. It's face in the mud where the moxie melt. Face in the mud. Are you submissive? Are you blind? Is there any relevance to dirt? There's definitely people refer to bad coffee as mud. When you get the grinds in it, they call that dirt. So there could be some play there, but face in the mud where the moxie melt. That's a powerful statement.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him up with a moxie melt. He woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. With a torch on the wall and a window arrangement of porcelain dolls on a brand new.
So he said a lot there.
Drowning in tchotchke hell. Born a cave.
Woke up in tchotchke hell. I don't know if you guys know what tchotchkes are. Not every family uses that word. It's funny. I always thought that was like some sort of slang word. I didn't really realize that that's an actual thing. That's in language, right? A tchotchke is like a little. They're kind of annoying to me, but they're like little useless things that you collect as you go through life, right? It could be you go to a baby shower or a wedding, and you have some little tchotchke they give you. You go to an old person's house, like my mother-in-law. She collects what are they called? Precious moment dolls. So there's little ceramic dolls all through the house and little ribbons of they're like little useless, worthless things, right? But it's interesting what he said there, because he said he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. Is he talking about these useless little trinkets that are all around you, right? But it's definitely dumb stuff that you pick up through life. And let me just pick this up and make sure some of the kids aren't. Everything is cool. But let's let it ride there. But I think he said a cave with a torch on the wall. And that's what stood out to me the first time.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him up with a moxie melt. He woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. Born a cave with a torch on the wall and a window arrangement.
More in a cave than a torch on the wall. That definitely sounds like allegory of the cave there. For those that don't know allegory of the cave, this is Plato's work. It's kind of hard to summarize in a brief way, but it's more like trusting your senses, right? In order to using your senses to gain knowledge. The allegory, it's more about how you perceive truth, right? The main idea of the allegory is the difference between people who, I guess, they experience sensory experiences and they call that knowledge, or that's their truth, right? Versus those who understand real knowledge by literally seeing the truth. So far, what do we got here, right? It sounds like he's arriving. I would imagine he's at a coffee shop. I imagine he's at a coffee shop, right? It sounds like he's going there. He's picking up his morning Joe. It sounds like he hates that people are lingering, right? And they're walkie-talkie. They're lingering around. They're being social. They could be these zombies because they haven't had their coffee yet, or maybe they're zombies for another reason, right? We know that he likes to hate on the. I don't want to say hate, but bring attention to the isms of the world, right? But he doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to be social. He doesn't like it. He wants to get his coffee and get out of there. He's the last one in, and he's the first one to get out. It sounds like, right? He's not. There's no meandering, right? He's in and out. And then he's back to the stereotypical adult grind, right? He's got his face in the mud. I don't know if it's mud as in coffee. It could be, right? But he's got his face down. He's back to the adult grind, the hustle. Or he's potentially blinded, right? If your head is down in the mud, you could be blinded from the world around you. And it says, moxie, right? His courage, his backbone, his spine. If it's melting, right, which is also playing on heat that he mentioned, he's losing his mojo. He's losing his spirit. And it sounds like he's waking up, right? He wakes up. I'm not sure if it's literal, and that's why he needs the coffee. But it could also be a metaphor that he's waking up possibly to the world around him, right? He's drowning in things. He says he's drowning in tchotchkes, right? Little useless trinkets and little household things. So we think about that. We know that he brings attention to these isms, right? What do I mean? He could easily be talking about materialism, right? There's this desire in our country for wealth and material possessions that really have little interest in ethical or spiritual matters, which could be the tie-in there. Definitely sounds like he's tying it in with porcelain dolls and the tchotchkes. I think if it's the one thing we can all agree on with tchotchkes, is they're more or less useless. They don't really have value except for the person that has them, and that's very little value, right? The cave on the cave with a torch on the wall. It definitely reminds me of allegory of the cave. And again, Plato is using. I want to make sure I'm summarizing that properly. It's been quite some time since I've went over his work, but Plato uses the cave. It's more of a symbolic representation of how we live in the world, right? It's our reality versus how we're interpreting reality. So, the two ideas reflect the two worlds in the story, right? There's a world inside the cave and the world outside. So when I think of materialism, I go back and I start to think of that quote, and we referenced this before. It's a famous quote. It's one of my favorite. It's from Ellen Goodman. I don't know if it's been around a lot before Ellen Goodman, but it's the one about normalcy, right? It says normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work and driving through traffic in a car that you're still paying for in order to get the job that you need to pay for the clothes in the car and the house that you leave vacant all day so you can afford to live in it, right? And that's our definition of normal. And that's how we view the world, and we think it's okay, right? Let's let it ride for context.
The moxie melted, he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. Born in a cave with a torch on the wall and a window arrangement of porcelain dolls on a brand new day. Saw what he saw, property owners who crawled in the mall with a bad
property owners who crawl through the mall.
arrangement of porcelain dolls on a brand new day. Saw what he saw, property owners who crawled in the mall with a bad toupee and a face like he authored a law. Warning a loss, right hand on a
So he's talking about the type of people that he's seeing in this coffee shop, right? I'm assuming when he goes to go buy his coffee, right? Property owners crawl to the mall. He said bad toupee, face like, what did he say? Face like he authored the law. That's just a great way to paint a picture, right? It's kind of funny that he references authoring the law. As you think about property owners, it meant something very different back in the day, right? It's like you think of this white male property owner, and you had different privileges like voting, right? Like it was James Madison, who was was he a fourth or fifth president? I don't remember. But James Madison, what did he say? He was talking about the right of suffrage, right? Suffrage basically being that right to vote. And he said it's a fundamental article in the Republican Constitution. And he said that he called it a peculiar delicacy, right? He said that the allowing the right to vote to property owners if you allow the right to vote to people that don't own property, there could be that conflict that people they could be overruled by people that are without property. So there was definitely a privilege given to them because of what that represents. So again, I think property owners means more of the elite. It's a little bit different in the context of today's world. It's not really owning land. I think he's more talking about the process in place to allow people to purchase land, right? The systems in place that we live in. And that always reminds me that just because something isn't legal doesn't mean it isn't right, right? Or vice versa, right? You think about at one point slavery, right? Or at one point voting. I'm wondering if the talk about property owners is going to tie in with the tchotchkes and the porcelain dolls, right? Because he was creating this imagery of these useless dolls earlier. And we thought he might be starting to allude to materialism. And it would be funny to see where it goes in regards to owning homes, maybe. Let's let it ride. And he paced like he's mourning a loss. Right hand on a can of worms. Left full of gold, he will trade return. I mean, that's okay. You got to answer to you at the end of the bottom. What did he say? He said something about worms. Property owners who grow them all with a bad toupee and a face like you author the law. Face like you're mourning a loss. Right hand on a can of worms. Left full of gold, he will trade return. I mean, that's okay. Now he's referencing the properties again, right? He said his right hand is on a can of worms. And his left is, he said something like full of gold that he's trading for property. Let's just listen, make sure I have it right. And he's trading for turf, right? Which is the same as like property or land. Give me 1 second. Let me check these ring cameras. I have an investment property in Chicago, and Chicago is super active, if you know what I mean. So got to check those cameras out. So, that's saying a lot. If his right hand is on a can of worms, we have to think, what does that right hand mean, right? The right hand, it's seen as like, it's a place of honor and status. And we see this throughout biblical text, right? When the Bible makes statements about Jesus Christ, so again, let's run it back here for just a little bit of context. I like the evil. I wish we could just break down the video as well, because we haven't done that yet and really looked in depth into the video, especially when it's an official video. Man, he looks like he's gained some weight here from the pictures that we usually have on the album covers and whatnot, but I guess this is a slightly newer one, right? It says that this was 8 months ago. It looks like it's on their official channel. But anyway, we want to reference, right, what does the right hand mean? He says right hand on a can of worms. And again, we talked about what that means from a biblical standpoint, because we think of Jesus Christ, right? He sits at the right hand of his Father. Right? You raise your right hand when you take the oath, right? Because the right hand is used typically in Western tradition. But what does the can of worms mean, right? I think deception. I think evil. I think of something that doesn't die, right? You cut off its head and it comes back. We've heard Aesop reference things like that in other work. But it shows where your honor is if you're putting your right hand over a can of worms. And I guess the same could be said about the left hand, right? Because he said your left hand is full of gold and he's going to trade it for turf. So again, this could be this, again, we're talking about materialism and the collection of things and what that means, just like he's collecting tchotchkes. And we reference the arrangement of the porcelain dolls, and we reference property owners, right? Now he's trading gold for turf. So there's definitely a feeling of materialism, but also consumerism that he might be getting to here. But think about the left hand and what that meant back in the day, right? The same reason we wear our wedding rings on our left hands. The ancients believed that, these are the ancient Romans, they believed that there was a large vein. They called that vein vena amoris, right? It ran from the left hand directly to the heart. And that's why we do that. But think about that. So the left hand full of gold, what that might represent, is that really what his heart is saying or where his heart is? I don't know. It's up for interpretation, but let's see if we can get some more context here.
You're mourning a loss, right hand on a can of worms, left full of gold, evil trade return. I mean, that's okay. You got to answer to you at the end of the Bible today, but a model of mercy and might no way.
So, he's saying it's okay. You answer to you at the end of the day. So kind of like, I guess I like the image here too, right? He's just looking at the hand like, what the fuck is that? Right? Like, damn. Like somebody's holding a dick out, or dude's over there with a towel and just flashed him right quick. He's like, damn. But anyway, he's saying like at the end of the day, it's you versus you, right? What's important to you? I like what he's saying there, but let's let it ride.
That's okay. You got to answer to you at the end of the Bible today, but a model of mercy and might no way.
But a model of, he said, you got to answer to you at the end of the day. But a model of mercy and might, no way, right? When I think of mercy and might, right away, there's an old Catholic hymn, right? That holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, right? It's a famous, I think it's Catholic, but it's basically where God is referenced as a mercifully might or mighty. Merciful, but there's some wordplay there, so it definitely sounds like that's what he's talking about when they say holy, holy, holy. They're actually referencing the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. All right, it's something called the Holy Trinity, right? So when he says a model of mercy and might, he's talking about religion, which is pretty obvious, I would think. But I think that's the reference, that old hymn. That's what I heard. A marionette, right? That's a puppet. So a marionette puppet who will clap and obey. So it kind of makes you think a little bit different, right? It sounds like he might be saying, if you tie it in together, what he said in the beginning, right? Don't be a mindless puppet. Don't keep your head in the mud, right? Like, don't be aware of the world around you. Which would also tie in with the allegory of the cave, right? And for those who don't know, a marionette puppet, it's just it's a little puppet. It's basically, there's a puppeteer. I think more than anything, I don't know if we need to get into specifics about types of puppets and the history of the marionette puppet. But basically, I think the more important fact that it's a puppet that's being controlled by a puppeteer. And again, you think about this. Think about the tchotchkes. Think about the dolls. Think about the trading of gold. What's important in our country today, right? And it definitely sounds like we're talking about worthless junk or things that could be considered worthless. And again, I think he's highlighting these different isms. What do we reference? Definitely materialism and consumerism. I could think of just right from the jump, right? Let's let it ride.
All that noise, call that flight of the water boys.
The flight of the water boys.
Look, all that noise, call that flight of the water boys.
I get this image. Let's let it ride.
Look, all that noise, call that flight of the water boys. Meet and greet, and they all slap five. Cheek to cheek when they colonize. And the grown-ass man shall abide as he wish. Walk that path with a diamond and stick.
When he said water boy, I always thought of Adam Sandler again, right? Oh, Mama said. Let's run it back a few seconds here.
Mind to the new recruit with the Plato spine. Let's be friends, fine as you wish. Walk that path with a diamond and stick. Walk to cheek when they colonize. And the grown-ass man shall abide as he wish. Inedible, clap and obey. Look, all that noise, call that flight of the water boys. Meet and greet, and they all slap five. Cheek to cheek when they colonize. And the grown-ass man shall abide.
Yeah, so I think what he's talking about here, call that flight of the water boys. I think he's talking about, again, he's at the coffee shop, right? I think he's watching people socialize at the coffee shop, and I think he's talking about the 9 to 5ers, right? Your typical coffee shop crowd. But this would be like the water cooler crew, right? There's water cooler gossip. People that work in an office setting, there's typically the old Hinkley and Schmidt, right? The Ice Mountain water cooler, and that's where people socialize in an office setting. So he said they meet and greet, they all slap high five, right? It's a type of person. He said cheek to cheek when they colonize, right? So they're definitely smiling cheek to cheek. But I don't think it's any accident that he said colonize, right? You think of what does colonize mean, right? It means that you're a group of settlers, if you would, and you're establishing control. Is that political control, control of the land, right? So it definitely, you get the sense of not just the materialism and the consumerism, but it's definitely hints here that he's also talking about classism, right? It's when you talk about property owners and such, right? It's a belief that someone's their social or their economic position in life or in society determines their value in that society. And he definitely hints on that a few times, right? So think about what he's saying, right? He's saying don't be a puppet and simply keep your head in the mud. You're only seeing this fake version of the world, right? You're seeing that. Think about the allegory of the cave and how that ties in. So people saying things at a coffee shop, hey, what's up? Good morning. How are you? Right? Things that don't really matter, right? They're talking about nonsense. You're losing your spine. You're losing your coverage. You're the blind working man. What did he say in that other song we did where you're whoring yourself out, right? You're working blindly. You're walkie talkies. You're like he's showing here in the video, right? You're zombies. You just collect tchotchkes because somebody told you that was a cool thing to do and sent you off into the world. You're buying worthless junk. You're trying to become wealthy. You're constantly running to be middle class. They're trying to be wealthy landowners and property owners. And we've been colonized to being puppets within the system, right? And the system is this a cycle? And what did he say? Like a grown man shouldn't feel the need to fit in anymore, right? Get off this consumerism train, the classism, the materialism, right? So we think about that, and for consumerism, it's I guess for those that English might not be the first language or so, consumerism is an idea that increasing how we consume goods and services, or consuming goods and services is always the goal, right? In an open market, and that a person's well-being, their happiness is all based on obtaining these goods and these material possessions, right? And it sounds like that's what he's been getting at as the build-up into this. This is just one verse.
Water boys, meet and greet me off that vibe. Cheek to cheek when they colonize. And a grown ass man shall abide as he wish. Walk that path with a diamond and stick. Walk that path with a diamond and wine. Walk that path shall abide as he wish. Walk that path with a diamond and stick. Walk that path with a diamond and wine. Walk that path shall abide as he wish. Walk that path with a diamond and stick. Walk that path with a diamond and wine. Walk that path to the firing line. Just walk. Pay no mind to the new recruit with the Play-Doh spine. Let's be friends from opposite ends. Wave to the kid, don't hop on the fence.
Ooh. So it sounded like there was a buildup there, right? He said, walk that path with a diamond and a stick, right? So it sounds like it's evolving. You walk with a diamond and a stick, you're poor, right? And then he said, walk that path with a diamond and wine. So you went from a diamond and a stick to a diamond and wine. And then what did he say? Like next you're going to be on the firing line. So it sounds like, we're in this circle constantly chasing material possessions, or we're constantly chasing things that have value or what we think have value all the way to death, right? Let's listen to that again.
Fine, let's be friends from opposite ends. Wave to the path with a diamond and stick. Walk that path with a diamond and wine. Walk that path to the firing line. Just walk. Pay no mind to the new recruit.
Just walk, pay no mind. Like you're a zombie. Go walkie-talkie, right? Zombies are just mindless and they're just doing one thing. And it sounds like that's what he's saying. Just keep your head down in the mud. And who does this benefit, right? if we keep if we keep the world going the way it is, there's powers to be that are benefiting for what spins off the cycle. And the cycle is needed. You need people constantly trying to be middle class so you can hold up this elite class as well. And really interesting because he says, what did he say right here about the Plato? A new recruit with the Plato spine, right? He's already talking about losing your moxie. So it's just, he's talking about somebody who's spineless, right? You walk that path, and it's going to get worse and worse, even as you think you're doing better. Just sick wordplay. I wonder if he's saying just give me space, right? Because I like what he said there, and I think I heard it wrong at first. He said, let's be friends from opposite ends. Wave to the kid, don't hop on the fence. At first, I was thinking of what is, when you hear of somebody jumping a fence, and it's not literally jumping a fence, it normally does. It normally means doing something different, right? It means, you're gonna go to a new routine, a new career, a new social setting. That's what jumping the fence would mean. It means in some circles, right? Because you think of what is that? Let's be friends from opposite corners. Like we have respective corners. Let's wave to each other, acknowledge each other, but no way to jump on their way of living life. I'm thinking of the keep your balls, grow your beard, keep your individualism, right? Keep your moxie. But I don't know, because he could be saying, really just give me my space, right? Like wave to the kid, kind of like wave to your boy, right? We hear that a lot of hip hop. I know he's from New York, so there's got to be a little slang, a little urban terminology there. When you say, man, say what's up to your boy, right? He's saying like wave to the kid, don't hop on my fence, like give me room. Like I'm not here to say anything, just give me my coffee and stay out of my face, right? Don't hop on my fence, just give me the wave. Let me know you acknowledge me. A Truman Show kind of deal, right? Opposite ends, wave to the kid, don't hop on the fence. Play to the radius, far and away. Orbit wide, don't park in the space. Yeah. See what he's play to the. What did he say? Play to the radius, far and away. And we heard him reference this before, right? Having a wide orbit. What does that mean? It means you don't come around much. What did he say about his neighbors? He said, I like wild orchids and neighbors with a wide orbit. That was a different song that we broke down. Like, what does that mean, right? When flowers grow wild and neighbors have wide orbits, they don't come around that often, and that's what he prefers, right? So it sounds like he's saying, keep your distance, right? He prefers to be isolated. It's either leave him alone or leave them alone. You know what it also kind of reminds me of, since he said radius, I definitely think that it's in connection. He's tying it in with the orbit, right? When you think of radius and diameter, you think of orbit. But there is a play on, or could be a play on a music industry term, right? There's something called a radius clause that really affects a lot of artists. A radius clause is when you're going to have some big event, right? And it's a non-compete clause in the live music industry where basically somebody who's promoting a tour can stipulate that you can't do any work for a specific period of time within a specific region. And it really affects these artists who make their money by traveling and doing shows, right? You get a big show like it's really important here, Lollapalooza in Chicago. Well, the attorney general out here, who's it was Lisa Madigan, but they had issues with Lollapalooza because they had this investigation. Sometimes these artists couldn't perform within like 300 miles of Chicago for a 6-month period, right? So there are clauses, and it gives them the ability to make money, but it also really limits the artist. It's something called a radius clause. But it's really specific for like live events, live music. I don't know that he's getting it there, but that's also something that I thought of as we were letting it ride. Mind to the new recruit with the Plato spine. Be friends from opposite ends. Wave to the kid, don't hop on the fence. Play to the radius, far and away. Orbit wide, don't park in the space. One little martyr, we talk in the space. Make one little weatherman sharpen up the blade. Ooh. one little martyr who talk in his face, right? What's a martyr? It's somebody who's killed because of their religious beliefs, right? Or other beliefs, I guess. But he said, make one little weatherman sharpen the blades. I think he's referencing that, what is it called? It was a weather, it was either the Weather Underground Group or the Underground Group of Weather. Basically a terrorist organization, right? This is you're talking about the 70s. I don't know if it's 80s. It's definitely 70s because of the Vietnam War, right? It was a political group that were basically trying to, I don't want to say overthrow the U.S. government, but there was a lot of, they wanted to like bomb government buildings, right? They had this like, they declared war on the United States, and under their name, like they formally were recognized as a terrorist group. And this is a time, keep in mind, you got Black Power movement, right? You got a lot of the fighting against the Vietnam War, and they used to say, "We are everywhere," right? They were, I don't want to say kids, but they were kind of like what we would consider the far left today. Really but very extreme, right? They were socially conscious, but they were trying to take a stand against really the things that we're talking about here, the isms of the world, right? Racism, classism. They didn't think that being a weatherman was a bad thing. In fact, they thought that they were helping to lead the U.S. out of the Vietnam War. But they were also shining a lot of light onto the issues in the world, but they were very extreme in their ways. So I just love that he's bringing that up, right? They were definitely challenging what we call the status quo, right? So just that's really interesting. Let's let it ride here again. The beat change. Ooh, that transition was sick. Yeah. I'm gonna run it back here just to understand the context a bit more. Let it ride. To the radius far and away, orbit wide, don't park in the space. One little martyr with talk in the space, make one little weatherman sharpen up the blade. Is she turning into one? Oh! The beat is very fast. I kind of like his or slower ones where he's got a different flow. This is still good, but. And the last shall be first to the curb with the mad cow meat. Facing the bars of a regular cell when he woke up high in collectible hell. Boomtown kid, he was told by the bench that a man who expired with the most shit win. And let's let it ride. His flow is so quick in this. And the last shall be first to the curb with the mad cow meat. Facing the bars of a regular cell when he woke up high in collectible hell. Okay, so he's talking about the collectibles, but he went a little bit different when he came in, right? He started talking about the mad cow meat. He said, "And the last shall be," again, right? We think about what did Jesus mean when he said the first will be last and the last will be first, right? But it sounds like people are getting infected, right? And I don't know if it, there's obviously the zombie theme that's going on, but it could it be are they getting infected with the same twisted system, right? Are they all? Does it infect you like mad cow disease? It's something you can't get away from, right? Mad cow disease. I think most people know about it at this point, or at least came in contact with it. But researchers believe that. Really the infectious part of mad cow disease was really an abnormal version of a protein that was found in cells. It's something called a prion, Prion. I don't really know a lot about it, and I don't know the reason behind it, but basically that protein becomes altered and it destroys nervous system tissue that affect the brain and the spine. So, you could tie it in that way. I don't know if Aesop's going that deep. I've been surprised before. But when he talks about losing your moxie, right? He talks about being spineless. Now he's talking about mad cow disease, which attacks the nervous system, including the brain and the spine. Is that a coincidence? I don't know, but let's let it ride here. See, so again, he said face in the bars of a regular cell. We could say, is he talking about, prion, this protein that's found on the cell surfaces? I don't think he's getting that deep in mad cow disease myself. I think it's another reference that's probably more along the lines of the allegory of the cave, right? Because there's different levels to that metaphor. Now, what did he say? He said, face in the bars of a regular cell. To understand the levels of the metaphor for allegory of the cave, right? You get the first one, there's obviously deception, right? The shadows or the intended messages or the actual truth, right? Information without questioning it. And then think about it. If we don't have a reason to question something, we don't, right? The second stage is, I believe it's called liberation, which you have to question, you have to research, you have to study, right? Then there's acceptance, and the final stage, arriving to truth, is the return, or at least in regards to the allegory of the cave. There's definitely different levels, but it seems to be bringing up facing the bars of a regular cell. I'm going back there, especially with what he said earlier about the cave with a torch on the wall. It's definitely making me think of allegory of the cave again. Also, he woke up high in collectible hell, circling back to what we talked about earlier as well, right? Has he already been infected? Like we were saying before, is the infection, the mad cow disease, is it doing something that's technically crazy, right? He woke up and he's infected by materialism, classism, consumerism, right? Almost like he was in a cell behind bars. He's being controlled and manipulated, right? He woke up in collectible hell, which is also tying in with the tchotchkes and the collectible dolls and the collecting useless shit, right? Let's let it ride. Facing the bars of a regular cell when he woke up high in collectible hell. Boomtown kid, it was taught by the bench that a man who expired with the most shit win. That's war be American nonsense penned by the rich, not a routine friend that a pinch. No, so he clearly lays it out there, right? He said a boomtown kid who was caught by the binge, right? And what did he say? That whoever expires and has the most shit wins. So again, he's talking about materialism, consumerism. It feels really good to know that we were on the right track here. But he referenced something new here. He said boomtown, right? A boomtown is, you can think of think about during the California gold rush, right? A boomtown is, the simplest way is, it's a community that's getting rapid growth due to normally something that happened more or less overnight, right? Some economic shock, if you would. So you think about the gold rush, right? The mid 1800s, people are going into California. Where are they going to live? What about city services? Is there any taxation in place to help build the infrastructure of the city? No, and a lot of these places really lacked schools, any family programs. A lot of these places smelled like garbage because there was sanitation services in place, right? Because these cities, it was a boom, right? It was like something that happened overnight. Now, the problem with that is when something happens to the industry, the coal mine closes, or people move to a different type of energy. Those places become ghost towns, and we've seen that happen. We've seen a lot of that happen, the deterioration of Detroit, right, with the car building, the manufacturing that went on there. Look at where Detroit is today. I think we start seeing that collapse in Chicago as well. But Chicago still has some time to pull itself up. But let's get back on track here.
Of a regular cell when he woke up high in collectible hell. Boomtown kid who was told by the bench that a man who expired with the most shit win. That's more be American nonsense penned by the rich, not a routine friend in a pinch. Still not used to the stench of
Penned by the rich, right? He's also tying that back in the materialism penned by the rich, but earlier he mentioned he looked like he authored the law, right? So he's tying it all in here.
American nonsense penned by the rich, not a routine friend in a pinch. Still not used to the stench of
The person with the most shit wins. Your buddy wouldn't say that if he needed to borrow cash, though, right? Because he wants to take a little something from you. He said, what he said, not a routine friend in a pinch, wouldn't say that. Because they need to borrow something, right?
More be American nonsense penned by the rich, not a routine friend in a pinch. Still not used to the stench of what throws off otherwise loose to the vents. In the case the afraid observer got a pro kids box full of cell when he woke up high in collectible hell. Boomtown kid who was told by the bench that a man who expired with the most shit win. That's more be American nonsense penned by the rich, not a routine friend in a pinch. Still not used to the stench of what throws off otherwise loose to the vents.
Yeah, he said not used to the stench, right? Now, he could be talking about what I just alluded to. You get a boomtown, and a lot of these services don't take place. So a lot of problems when people are going and rushing into California or anywhere in the world is they don't have the infrastructure in place. So a lot of these places are probably going to smell like garbage. I don't know if that's what he's referring to, but let's let it ride here.
But a bench that a man who expired with the most shit win. That's more be American nonsense penned by the rich, not a routine friend in a pinch. Still not used to the stench of what throws off otherwise loose to the vents. In the case the afraid observer got a pro kids box full of lamest terms. Goes A, peace, pray for the plague, to major relief and capacious range.
He said, what did he say? He said he got a he's got a pro kids box full of layman's terms, right? Layman's term. Here, let's let it ride. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
A pro kids box full of lamest terms. Goes A, peace, pray for the plague, to major relief and capacious range. But just cause I don't
It's kind of talking like he doesn't want beef, right? Or he doesn't want any drama. So it definitely sounds like he could be talking. Well, we know what pro kids are. Pro kids are the early version sneakers. This is something where I want to say it was the 50s, 60s, where you started to get the earliest of basketball players, right? And eventually got into the hip hop community because they're really identifiable sneakers. But it sounds like he's got a shoebox, box full of layman's terms. A layman is more or less simplified terms, right? I don't know if he's referring to the weapon. When you think of layman, it's like the breakdown of it is it relates to people of faith, right? But not of the clergy. At least that's where the origins are, right? The origins go back to Greek, where they used to say laikos, meaning of the people, right? So layman was originally used to distinguish between non-clerical people and the clergy. So non-clerical terms weren't used with people that weren't in the industry. Now, today, we just say layman's terms. It means a simplified version, but the idea is the same. Don't use terminology that's specific to an industry with people that are not from that industry. Simpler terms could be a weapon here. I got a pro kids box full of layman's terms. Either he's saying that he has a way to... it just sounds like he might be referencing a weapon to me. But let's let it ride here.
Not used to the stench of what throws off otherwise loose to the vents. In the case the afraid observer got a pro kid. Still not used to the stench of what throws off otherwise loose to the vents. In the case the afraid observer got a pro kids box full of lamest terms. Goes A, peace, pray for the plague, to major relief and capacious range. But just cause I don't want to war with you, don't mean go warm up the barbecue. Like sword off limit.
Just because I don't want to war with you doesn't mean go warm up the barbecue. Sick. That's just great wordplay. And again, he could be alluding to a weapon because he's talking about peace, right? He said peace. I pray for the plagued, right? And the second was major rain. And what did he say?
Just cause I don't want to war with you. Hey, peace, pray for the plague, to major relief and capacious rains.
Capacious rains. Capacious means kind of like spacious, like full. So comprehensive. So if a capacious rains is like a good, you need water, right? But, maybe you're in a drought or so. So he's wishing to someone, but he said, just because I don't want to beef with you, right? Or I don't want to war with you, it doesn't mean go warm up the barbecue. It doesn't mean just because we don't agree, doesn't mean that we got to have beef. Love that, man.
Hey, peace, pray for the plague, to major relief and capacious arrangement. Just cause I don't wanna war with you, don't mean go warm up the barbecue. Like pardon you, sort of limit. My high noon is a war with you, don't mean go warm up the barbecue. Like pardon you, sort of limit. My high noon is a...
Did he say pardon you or carven you? Because he said sawed off limit. Sawed off could actually be wordplay with what's in the Pro Kids box, right? It could be a sawed off shotgun. That would tie that back in together. I think he said pardon you. Ooh. So he said high noon. So he's kind of establishing some time, a time frame here. High noon is technically 12, right? Post meridian, 12 p.m., right? It's the point of the day where the sun crosses the meridian, and it's called high noon because that's when the sun is the highest, or the highest point in the sky. So he isn't getting coffee in the morning. It's more of the noon crowd. I guess it really doesn't make a difference when it comes to, in the sense of like water cooler boys. But there could be some wordplay here, right? When people used to say high noon, there's that old kind of Western lingo with we're going to duel at high noon, right? Which could be playing off beef, which could be playing off mad cow. But we don't know if the duel, if he's referencing it, it could just be cool wordplay. Because in fact, a lot of duels didn't happen the way that you think in the Western world, right? People think that, it was really something where any time of day a shootout could happen. And a lot of people say it was at noon just because the sun's not in your eyes. I don't know. I haven't really read anything that really supports that. But there is that, of course, terminology that references like high noon, meaning there would be a duel. There's only a place in this town for one sheriff. Not that. I don't know what that was, but it was right. One sheriff in this town. Let's let it ride here. Ooh. So I don't want to spend my little minute sitting with a critic who's simply never really ever going to get it, right? You got to choose your battle sometimes. See, now, did he switch places? Because I was under the assumption that he was at the coffee shop. Now he's talking about this HQ. HQ normally refers to headquarters. Is he talking about his home? Or is he talking about like his state of being? Like where he is, right? Like his headquarters, maybe it's his body. So it definitely sounds like his house. He's saying no driveway, no sign of a home. No dial tone, right? No line for the phone. What did he say after that? You just talk about the world's tiniest violin. That's what you play like the tragic music. It's like it's really something that's sarcastic and dismissive of somebody's woe, right? Their grudge or whatnot. Like, oh, I'm gonna play world's tiniest violin. Like, no one gives two about what you're talking about, right? But it seems like he might have switched locations because, again, we were talking about the coffee shop. At some point, he started talking about his home. You said red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. That's like a cheap child's game, but it's also a card game. The equivalent, well, at least in the hood, they call the game Speed. It's a game to teach sequential order of cards, And you try to place cards, you can only place a card down if it is the next card before or after, based on the value of the card you put down. And then you can do it, it's called speed. So the point is to eliminate all your cards. But again, speed is probably the name of it in the hood. I don't know what it would be, and I guess in real life, I've only heard of it played like that. I'm assuming it's the same game.
Animal drums like your Dr. Teeth. Goes red like green light, 1, 2, 3. One large coffee.
He finally put his order in. Oh, they're out to get him. It's kind of like no matter how far you try to go, where you try to go, you could be affected by the disease, right? The mad cow disease, or this consumerism, materialism, because the world wants you to fit in this box, right? There's puppeteers that it's in their best interest that you follow these guidelines as well, and you're not thinking for yourself. Let's see what happens here. Take prisoners. Take no prisoners.
I crawled down to the basement when the weather got cold, like a lost lamb returning to the fold, and when the outside world
Lost lamb returning to the fold. It sounds like the parable of the lost sheep, right? Jesus says the parable of the lost sheep. It shows that the kingdom of God is accessible to all, right? Even the ones that might not have taken the traditional path, or what they call God's path, right? So he uses the example all the time of a shepherd who has there's 100 sheep, right? And one sheep just rolls down the cliff, right? He's going missing. And the shepherd leaves the 99 and he searches for the lost sheep. So it sounds like this is a reference to it, but I want to hear what he's saying there. I didn't expect that. I'm glad I didn't shut it off.
got cold, like a lost.
He said, I crawled down to the basement, right?
I crawled down to the basement when the weather got cold, like a lost lamb returning to the fold, and when the outside world recedes from view, it's just a year's supply of makeup and memories of you. 1967, cold 45, holding back the vampires, keeping me.
Man, you guys got to check out, if you like stuff like this, check out Blood of the Fang, the clipping, was just insane. A really good breakdown. It was in depth. I'm pretty sure that breakdown took over an hour. I was surprised at the depth in that, and I didn't really even know who the clipping was before it, but a very similar theme. The entire album is vampire based, I believe.
Alive. There's an envelope with some cash in it out by the front door. This is what they make you take the medication for.
Yo, that was sick. I didn't really get the last part though. I don't know who that guy was. Because it just says Aesop Rock Coffee official video. Aesop Rock Coffee. John. Okay, right here. Writers John Darnielle. So I don't know who that was. I'd appreciate the help. And in the breakdown, it didn't seem like that tied in completely. He could have been saying a lot of things there. He's talking about a year's supply of makeup. Best I could see, I'm thinking these are zombies. They'd have to put on makeup to look normal. And you see that a lot with people that are infected with other things, right? There was a lot of drug abuse, and I didn't really know my father too much. He's passed away now, but he was addicted to drugs, and they use makeup quite often to look normal when they're walking amongst others. So there could definitely be a reference there. Holding back the vampires, it kind of seems like keeping things at bay. So there's definitely some, but maybe because it's in such a different, it comes at you so different from Aesop. It's almost like hearing a new artist and what he might be referencing. Really, really curious to know who that artist is, though. The voice was great. So yeah, man, really like this one. It was much deeper than I thought. But I love when he talks about, the isolation and depression is good, but I love when he starts throwing in good information. Again, the materialism, classism, consumerism, all the isms. He definitely tackled with this one. It was much deeper than I thought it would be, but man, just an excellent video to go with it. I'm kind of upset that we didn't get a lot of time to look at the symbolism throughout this video. There are just little things that I could tell. Just like right here, 411, right? Information, or typically used for information. What does that mean? At what point in the So there's different So, yeah, love it, though. I'm going to definitely play this one back and watch it again. I'm really excited to get into the next one. I got a couple lined up here. And if you guys are fans of Aesop Rock, man, I love all the support you guys have been getting, all the comments and suggesting new artists as well. We'll look through the rhymesayers, the different artists, and we'll continue going through Aesop's work. Again, there's a folder below called the clipping, Blood of the Fangs. That's very similar. You guys might like the approach to that, if you would. So check it out. It's in one of the folders below. We got a variety of other Aesop Rock breakdowns below. And let me know what you guys think, and I'd appreciate the help on the last part. I didn't really know what that guy was saying. I could use some help with that breakdown part. We'll see you on the next video.